morning, everybody. You are listening to Dr. Sharon Cook on the Procure Smarter podcast. Welcome, everybody. Today, we are going to talk to Paul Rutter. And Paul wrote the book, You Can't Make This Ship Up. Business Strategies, Life Lessons, and True Stories from 40 Years at Sea. It is a pretty great interview, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. But first, let's do a shameless plug for my own company, Procuresmart. We are a FF&E purchasing, hospitality, commercial space procurement agency, and we would love to work with you. We are small, but we have a lot of power behind us, and it allows us to be super aggressive with pricing. So if you have a renovation or new construction coming up, please reach out to us. Give us a chance. We will blow you out of the water. Okay, let's get talking to Mr. Paul Rutter. Hi, Paul.
Hello, how are you?
How are you?
Good. So do I officially call you Dr. Sharon, or how do you like to be addressed?
I am officially Dr. Sharon, but you feel free to call me Sharon. Okay, tell me about your big day yesterday.
Well, it was very exciting. This is my second book that was just published, and very excited about it. It's a collection of stories. I've been in the cruise industry for over 40 years, which I can't believe. And it's a collection of stories and basically what land-based businesses can learn from them. There have been many books that are written about what goes on behind the scenes in the cruise industry and what goes on below deck and all these salacious type books. But I wanted to write something that still incorporated great stories from what happens on board, because everybody's always interested in that. But what are the lessons learned? Because the cruise industry is extremely unique in that we live with our customers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And what if land-based businesses had to live with their customers? How would they treat them differently? Would they return phone calls and return emails and do what they say they're going to do? Because they know when they wake up in the morning, their customers are going to be right there with them, eating in the same restaurants and, having a drink in the same bar, or, going ashore together. So how would land-based businesses differ if they had to live with their customers? And one more dynamic I want to add to that is we also live with our coworkers. And so how is employee engagement and the culture that you set up, how is it for your employees? Because in the cruise industry, our motto is, if you take care of the employees will take care of the customers. And so I know that's a long-winded answer to your question. So yesterday was very exciting, but it's a culmination of all my time working on board cruise ships, and I'm very excited about it.
So let's say, what was the name of the book?
Okay. Sorry, I guess I haven't done that. So the name of the book is You Can't Make This Ship Up. And the subtitle is Business Strategies, Life Lessons, and True Stories from 40 Years at Sea. And every time I tell somebody I work on a cruise ship, their first response is, oh, wow, you must have some great stories. And so, yes, that's the answer. I do have some great stories. And we talk about a lot of them in the book and what we learned from them.
And if you're interested in purchasing, I got my copy this morning on Amazon, but I'm assuming you can get it in most digital forms, right?
You can get it. It's being distributed by Ingram distributors, so you can get it anywhere. Barnes & Noble, Walmart.com. Somebody saw it on Target.com. So Amazon, but yes, wherever fine books are sold.
That's awesome. Okay, so now you mentioned two things. You mentioned one, you have to live and work with your coworkers, and you have to live with your customers. So of those two, what do you think is the hardest?
Wow, that's a good question. I think the most interesting, I don't know if there's one that's harder than the other. The most interesting is working and living with your crew member, with your coworkers. I love, this book is dedicated to all the coworkers, all the crew members that I've worked with over the 40 plus years, because they work so hard. And on a cruise ship, let me ask you, Sharon, have you taken a cruise before?
I have. My husband and I are huge cruisers. We've been on about 8, I think.
Okay, so how hard these crew members work, and they're on for months at a time, and they rarely get a day off. And they are home supporting families, and that that when you sail on board a ship, that there's very few Americans working on board. Most of the crew members come from outside the US or Canada. And so how do you deal with, crew members from close to 70 different countries? How do you keep them engaged? And so that is really the more interesting area that I really look at, because the old expression, what comes first, your customers or your employees?
Mm-hmm.
My answer to that is that your employees should always come first, because as I mentioned, if you take care of your employees, then they will take care of your guests. So
Right.
that's been an incredible experience, is being able to live and work with people from 70 different countries. It's just such an incredible education. And then to travel to a lot of these places with these crew members who, if we're going to, let's say, China, but we have a lot of Chinese crew members on board. They are so proud of where they come from, and they want to really let you see the best places that those cities have to offer. So it's just been an absolutely incredible experience working with people from, at any one time, close to 70 different countries.
Right. Well, I did get a chance to read through some of the book this morning, but I got to the part where you talk about being more than perfect. And so you had mentioned more stood for memorable, original, repeat, and exceed. And I would like to talk about that.
Oh, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for getting the book and reading it. I really appreciate that.
Of course.
In my first book, which I wrote in 2017, it's called Repeat Business Incorporated, The Business of Staying in Business. And it's 50 tips and strategies that any business can do today to keep their customers coming back tomorrow. Because if there's one thing we've learned from this pandemic, it's that you cannot compete on price alone. There's always somebody somewhere down the street, online, a click away, who's going to have a lower price than you, no matter what your service is. So you have to compete on more than price. You have to compete on service, and you have to compete on the experience, the total experience that your customers have doing business with you. And so I developed what I call the more than perfect model. And it's, as you say, it's make it memorable, original, you repeat your successes, and you exceed expectations. And if I can tell you a quick story about how this came about, the more than perfect model.
Yes, please do.
So we were sailing out of Civitavecchia, Italy, which is the port city of Rome, and we were doing 10 to 12-day cruises around the Mediterranean, and one of the stops was in Egypt. And so when you go to Egypt, you, of course, have to go to the pyramids. I mean, you don't go to Egypt without going to the pyramids, let's be honest. And so we had tours from the ship that went to the pyramids. It was an all-day tour. We were actually there overnight. We dock in Alexandria, which is about a 3-hour bus ride away from Cairo, where the pyramids are. So one cruise, I had a customer come up to me, one of our guests, who had booked her own private tour to the pyramids, and she had booked it online from the United States. Now that's that can be a little dicey sometimes, because you don't know who you're dealing with. You just get their name off the internet, and all of a sudden you book a tour in Egypt. So that could be a little scary sometimes. So she came up to me and said, "Do you know these people? I booked my own private tour." And unfortunately, I didn't know about them, but I told her, "When you come back, let me know how it went." So I didn't see her for a few days, and I saw her a few days later, and she said the tour was incredible. The guide was wonderful. They went places that the people from the ship didn't go, because it wasn't a big cattle call. On the ship, we had over 3,000 people. So when you had busload after busload, it's sort of like a lot of people going at the same time. You're herded around like cattle. But she had her own private tour. And when all the people were at the pyramids, they went someplace else. And then when all the people left the pyramids, they went there, and they had their own personal day. And it was just an incredible experience. And the reason why I wanted to know how it went was because I had family sailing in a few weeks. And I didn't want them to go on the buses with the thousands of our cruise guests. Not that that tour was bad, but it was just you wanted your own personal tour. So I contacted this guide. I had his email address. We set up a tour for my family and for me. There was only like 3 or 4 of us at that time. And he was, as the lady said, incredible. We got inside the pyramids. He could read hieroglyphics. We had dinner outside the pyramids at night where you could hear the music and see the light show. And it was just what I called a perfect day. So fast forward 6 months, we're back in the area. We're doing the same cruises. I have more family and friends sailing with me. And of course, they want to go to the pyramids and they wanted to take the ship tour. I said, no, you're going to take a tour with Yasser, the guide that I went with and my family earlier, and we'll arrange it. So they did. And I had told other crew members what a great time we had. So this time there were about 10 or 12 people that wanted to go with Yasser. He had purchased his own bus. He was forming his own tour company. This was in 2012, possibly around 2011, 2012. So I escorted the people out for their tour. I did not go this time because I had gone 6 months previous, and it's a long day. It's a 3-hour bus ride. You spend all day there. It's a 3-hour bus ride back. So I escorted them out to meet Yasser, and I said, Yasser, whatever you do, just give him that same perfect tour that you gave us. And he looked at me and he said, no, 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 Mr. Paul, this time it will be more than perfect, more than perfect. And I went, yeah, sure, whatever. Just give him the same tour because I had told them so much about it. So they went off on their tour, and I finally saw my family and friends the next day because they got back like 3 or 4 in the morning. And they said, Paul, it was amazing. We did this, 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 and this, which is exactly what we did on our tour. And then they said, and then at midnight, when we were leaving the pyramids at night and we were just about to come back to the ship, Yasser looked at us and said, I have arranged to have a 1-hour cruise down the Nile River. Are you interested in taking a 1-hour cruise down the Nile River? Well, of course, they looked at him and they said, yes, we don't care that it's midnight. Of course, we want to take a cruise down the Nile River. So what Yasser actually did was give a little extra something that we didn't get. I didn't get to go down the Nile River, and I was mad about that. But they did, and what Yasser actually did was make that tour more than perfect. I thought I had the perfect tour. He made it a little bit extra special. And so that's what I'm trying to get across to businesses on land, that they have to come up with little sort of wow moments. They don't have to be expensive. They don't have to take a lot of time, but they have to be memorable, because it's the memories that we create that our customers remember. And that's what they're going to book their next cruise on. All these years later, 8, 9, 10 years later, we still talk about that tour. We still talk about Yasser. And that's what land-based businesses need to do. They need to create long-lasting memories so that when people want to come back and take another cruise or buy another car or get more flowers from a florist or go find a dry cleaning shop, it's the businesses that create memories, even if they're little memories that you remember somebody's name. That's a memory that somebody will remember. So as long as businesses are creating memories, that's what people make their decisions on. They make emotional decisions, and they need it to be more than perfect. And that's a long way around to getting to the more than perfect story, is by creating memories.
I mean, it is fantastic. I actually had it in my notes. I had read somewhere. I have done a deep dive of all things you and your social media and LinkedIn. And one of your favorite places that you had mentioned visiting was Egypt. And my husband and I have been very lucky that we actually got to go to Egypt. We were in Cairo for a business function. We took a private tour out to the pyramids. But now, having heard your story, I am so stinking jealous, because I do not think mine was more than perfect.
And that's what it comes down to. It's memories. That's what we do on a cruise. I'm not in the cruise industry. I'm not even in the hospitality industry. I'm in the business of creating memories, because people buy emotional decisions. And I always say, one of the things I say is that businesses need to create exceptional experiences that exceed expectations. because you can't just meet expectations, you need to exceed expectations, which is the E in the more than perfect model. And what we've done with the more than perfect model, it's on my website, which is paulrutterspeaks.com. I thought I'd put in a shameless plug right there.
Absolutely.
So you can see the more than perfect model, and it's actually 4 quadrants. And the first quadrant is determining where you are now with your customer service and customer experience model. How easy is it for people to find you? How easy is it for people to navigate your website? That's all part of the experience. And so the first quadrant is, where are you now? What rules, policies, procedures, principles you have in place? The second quadrant is, where do you want to be? What are some of the experiences that you've had that you would like to replicate within your own business? So you remember going to Egypt and the great experience you had there. What were some of the things that happened that you can incorporate into your own business? Now, obviously, we can't relate Egypt to whatever business here on land, let's say a flower shop or a dry cleaner, but they still have to create that experience. And so the second quadrant is, where do you want to be? What would you like to accomplish? So for instance, if anybody in your audience, if they visited Zappos online, or if they go to a Ritz-Carlton hotel, these are some excellent experiences that you remember the next time you want to go to a hotel or buy a pair of shoes. If it was a great experience the first time, it's probably going to be a great experience the next time. So the second quadrant is figuring out where you want to be. The third quadrant is the training that you have to do. And within that third quadrant, we have something called the laugh model. And that is how you deal with complaining customers, because that's a big fear is, oh no, a customer is going to yell at me. But we have something called the laugh model, that if there is a problem, you just laugh. And that helps you take care of the problem. And then I go into more detail in the third quadrant. And then the fourth and final quadrant of the more than perfect model is the follow-up and the follow-through. And by doing everything correctly, you will then make your customers as well as your employees what we call raving brand ambassadors. They're the ones that go out and promote your business, whether you're an electrician or a roofer or a plumber, that they're the ones who will tell their neighbors, their families, and their friends, because those are the best kind of recommendations are from the people that you already know. If you go online and look at recommendations, you don't know who's writing it. It could be the business themselves that are giving themselves 5-star ratings. But you can always listen to your family, your friends, and your neighbors. And I don't know if you know the website Nextdoor, which is a accumulation of neighbors that talk to each other. And that's how I found a lot of people. And so you want your customers and your employees to do all your marketing for you. It's free marketing when people tell everybody else how great your business is. And so that's the fourth and final quadrant of the more than perfect model, is the follow-up, the follow-through, and the continuous training, and becoming raving brand ambassadors.
That's amazing. All right. Definitely, I recommend the book. I have not read all of it yet, but I am getting a lot out of it.
Well, thank you.
So I want to move you away just a little bit from the book and talk about your career path in hospitality. So I was doing all this research on you, and I I just kept finding like you were an educator, and then you were a voiceover artist, and then an actor, and then you moved into the life of a cruise director. Is that correct?
Sort of. The order was a little out of whack, but
tell me about it.
Okay, so what happened is I'm dating myself really bad now. So I had graduated college, Boston University, go Terriers, in 1976. And I grew up in Connecticut. So I'm a New Englander, born and bred. And so I was taking my dog for a walk. I had graduated college. I was taking my dog for a walk. Across the street was the high school I went to. So there's a lot of open space. I took my dog for a walk there. One day in October, I ran into the principal of the high school. He was leaving for the day. And I knew the principal because I was part of their music program that was very well known. And we just started talking, how you doing? How's everything good? His name was Dr. Dunn. And so out of the blue, he said, how'd you like to work on a cruise ship? And I went, huh, what? I turned around, make sure he was talking to me. And there was a parent at the high school who was just starting in the late 70s to put slot machines on board cruise ships, and they would split the profit with the cruise ships. So this was a long time ago, before the ships had really big casinos. They would find an old closet or storage room they weren't using, cleaned it out, put in, 10 or 20 slot machines. And so I went on as a cashier. That's all it was a cashier. And so that's how I got my start in the cruise industry, was by taking my dog for a walk. And when I met with the gentleman, he said, listen, I need you for at least 3 months. If you're going to do this, stay for at least 3 months. That way, if you don't like it, I can find somebody to replace you.
Mhm.
Well, 3 months has turned into 40 plus years because I really just love the lifestyle and the life and the traveling. And it was just an incredible experience. Now, I will say cruise ships are not for everybody. Working on board is not for everybody, but it really just fit my lifestyle. So the first thing is that I started working on ships. And then when I was taking vacations and back in Florida, where I live now, I had, months of free time. And that's when I started getting into voiceovers and acting in commercials while I had my free time on land. But then I would always go back for another, 4 to 6 month contract on board a ship, because that's where the fun was. That's where I could earn some good money. And that's where the education and the traveling was. And so I started right out of college, right on the cruise ships, and everything else has come from that.
That's awesome. Now, you have been to 6 continents?
Correct.
And how many countries?
If I remember in the book, I think I said 71. There's this app that said that's been, and I added it up. I think it was 70 countries. Some I have to admit, some were just staying in the airport, a few,
Right.
But I did able to go out there. But there's still a lot of places on the bucket list that I really need to discover a lot more.
I mean, that's crazy. So first of all, I want to hear the bucket list, but I also want to hear, I think I read Alaska and Egypt were some of your favorite places.
Those, so people always say, what's your favorite itinerary? And so usually and they ask me that while I'm on a ship. And so I'll always say, well, wherever we're going this week is my favorite itinerary.
Right.
But if you really pin me down, I just absolutely love Alaska, the Alaskan cruises. I'm a big nature person. I love seeing the bald eagles flying overhead. I love having the whales, playing next to the ship. I love the food. The crab and the fish and the fresh caught salmon. So I will always recommend that people book at least one Alaskan cruise in their lifetime.
That's exciting to hear for us, because my husband and I are actually booked on our first Alaska cruise for May.
Excellent. Can I ask with who you're going?
We're doing Carnival.
Excellent. Well, they're a great cruise line and you'll have a lot of fun.
So we're super excited. Okay, so let's go to your bucket list then. Out of all these places in the world you've been to, where would you still like to go?
Well, I have to do more of a deep dive on the list. I'm a scuba diver, so on the top of the bucket list is to dive at the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. That is very much on my bucket list. And then since I'm over there, I'd love to get to New Zealand, because from what I've seen, and I have friends over there. And that's the great thing about working on a ship with all these people. You have friends in every country around the world that you can go and visit. So Australia, New Zealand, but then I've heard just some wonderful things about Vietnam and Singapore I haven't been to yet. I'm hopefully going to be getting to Hong Kong soon.
Okay, listen, Hong Kong. I've been to Hong Kong on business. Phenomenal, amazing, beautiful.
That's what I've heard. And I know they're having a little problem over there now. So I'd like to try and get there as soon as possible. But I love Alaska. I love Egypt. And then I'm fascinated by the history of Europe. We think here in the United States, well, 300 years of history. Wow. Well, yeah, go over to Egypt or Europe and talk about 4,000 to 5,000 years of history. And,
right.
You go to Napoli and see what the eruption of Mount Vesuvius and how people unfortunately passed away there through the volcanic eruptions, and all the unbelievable history of Europe is really fascinating to me. So there's still a few places I need to go to and get back to. I'm a big fan of Italy, and just some wonderful places there.
Right. We would love to do Europe, but my husband has asked me if we could make our next big adventure an African safari. So I think that's what we're going to try to aim for.
And I have to be honest, I've done that as well. I've done the 35-day East African cruise and went on safaris, and this was a long time ago. This is when I first started, I think in the late 70s, early 80s. Just fascinating, and you will have an absolutely wonderful time.
That's amazing. Okay, now if my research is correct, you are very strong, service-oriented kind of personality. Let's talk about Therapy Dogs International.
Well,
what is your role with that organization?
So I will talk about dogs for the rest of my life if you give me the opportunity to.
Okay.
We can forget about cruising and just talk dogs, which is fine with me. So obviously I'm an animal lover. We had 2 golden retrievers and their names were Ricky and Lucy, after Lucille Ball, if you're a fan of I Love Lucy. So we had Ricky and Lucy. Lucy was the sweetest, most loving dog. She's unfortunately passed away now, but she was a therapy dog, and we took her to training, and she got certified as a hospice dog. So we would take her to nursing homes and hospice centers, and to see people's eyes just light up when this beautiful golden retriever would walk into the room and just go right up to them and put her head in their lap and just say, okay, I'm here, pet me now, everything's going to be okay. It was just one of the best things I've ever been associated with. And so that's Therapy Dogs International. Now, our other dog, Ricky, we tried to get him, but he wanted no part of it. He wasn't interested. He would be barking at everybody, and it wasn't the right personality to be a therapy dog. But with Lucy, and everybody loved to see her. All the nurses and all the people who worked in these hospitals and hospice centers would just love for Lucy to walk in the door, because they would just take a few minutes. You know that blood pressure goes down when you just start petting a dog. And so it's just, I feel I've been very blessed in my life, obviously. So I think a need to give back is extremely important. And that was just one of the ways that I was able to do that with our beautiful golden retriever.
Now, you and I have never talked before, right?
Correct.
I actually have a Lucy in my life. I have a bloodhound that has the big floppy ears and the big jaws, and her name is Lucy. This dog, I mean, she's close to 100 pounds, but she really believes she's a lap dog.
Of course.
And unfortunately, she's a massive drooler. So when she gets excited, she salivates and drool just goes everywhere. But she is absolutely just an angel in our household.
It's funny. I read somewhere where Lucy is one of the most popular dog names.
I never heard that.
Yeah, because I've known a few Lucys who've been dogs. I have a good entertainer friend. His dog was Lucy as well. So I've heard of a few Lucys out there.
All right, let's talk one more thing. After a deep, deep profile, I found another skill, and is that stand-up comedy?
Well, yes and no.
Okay, tell me that story.
First of all, comedians, God bless the comedians. It's not easy what they do. They may make it look easy to make people laugh, but it isn't easy what they do. But what I do is, as cruise director on board, as you know from your cruises, I'm the one that hosts the main shows, and I introduce all the main acts. And I've never considered myself an entertainer. I'm more of a manager, because I manage up to 150 people on board the ship. So I don't really look at myself as an entertainer. But one thing I always do is, before I start the show, is I always tell one joke. And it's, a nice, clean joke that's family friendly. But I found that that's always loosened people up. And it got to the point, because I would always tell a joke every day. And some people during the day would come up to me, okay, what's the joke tonight? And they'd razz me. Oh, that joke last night was terrible. Oh, that joke the night before was great. And so the opening, and it was always just one joke. And so it sort of became a bit of a joke that people sometimes they say, oh, we just come into the show to see your joke and then we leave. And I thought, no, don't do that. We have some wonderful entertainment for you. So while I don't really consider myself a stand-up comedian, I do tell at least one joke at the start of every show. So I do love, I just seeing people laugh is just absolutely wonderful.
That's fantastic. Paul, you have been so interesting and so wonderful to talk about. Now,
Thank you.
you do have another book out there, right? Can we do a quick plug for that one as well?
Sure. The first one is called Repeat Business Inc., The Business of Staying in Business. And it's 50 tips and strategies. It's on Amazon. And then this newest one is You Can't Make This Ship Up. And again, both on Amazon. My website is paulrutterspeaks.com. Please follow me on Facebook, Paul Rutter Speaks. I'm on Instagram, Paul Rutter Speaks. Twitter, I'm at Real Paul Rutter. LinkedIn, I'm very big on LinkedIn. So please look me up on LinkedIn, and I'd love to meet up with all of your listeners out there. And so they can find me everywhere. And I just really appreciate the time that we have to talk.
Thank you very much. I will give you notice when this is getting ready to go live.
Excellent. And I will promote it as best I can.
Thank you, Paul. Have a good day.
Thank you, Sharon. It's been a pleasure.
Hi, everybody. What did you think of that episode? Did you enjoy it? I would love to hear your feedback. We are really trying to broaden our guests, have lots of different types of guests on. If you wrote a book, if you have something interesting happening in your company, if you would just like a little bit of free marketing space, come on out, talk to us. We'll find something to talk about, even if I talk about the flowers in your garden. You can reach me on my website. We have a direct link to my calendar at www.procuresmartco.com. You can email me directly at Sharon, 2 R's, at procuresmartco.com. You can LinkedIn me, Instagram me. For very few of you, you can hunt me down on Facebook if you're that ambitious. But give us a try. We would love to work with you. We would love to host you on the podcast. If you're going to BDNY, please look me up. You can message me and I'll try to make time to get in to see you. But I'll be wandering around with free bags of candies. Shameless marketing on my part, I know. That is it for today's episode. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you very much for spending some time with me. Have a good day, everybody.